All right, Katie. So did you get a chance to reflect on your lesson from Wednesday?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so you want to tell me a little bit about what you thought was strengths or any weaknesses, what you thought went well?
Okay. So I definitely think that the lessons have gotten better this week. I've definitely broken them down, and have simplified things. I'm understanding more about the time constraints and her level. And it's just every day I work with her, I get to know her a little bit better and what she's, what she can handle like during that time frame.
Yeah.
Now, I will say I still went a little bit over the time with this past lesson.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it afterwards and trying to think like what could I have done differently? And I think, I could have just done one paragraph with her, because there were a lot of technical terms in that second paragraph, like ADHD. And I thought she might be familiar with it though, because she has ADHD and mom had mentioned that to me with her there at the beginning. So I kind of like thought like, oh, she might know about this. Like, and I really thought this would be great because I was like, she would see herself and she loves Simone Biles. So I was like, this would be great for her. But I don't know if she really picked up on that and made that connection. And I didn't want to say like, you have ADHD, but hopefully, at some point that might register. Maybe it did. And like, she didn't want to express it. I don't know. But
so basically you're kind of saying, you're getting to know her more and more, which is awesome. And you're breaking it down a little bit more, understanding what she can handle. And that piece on, with the words, like, I wonder if there's a way that you can make that text maybe more fluent, like in that sense, with the, like having those words.
So my idea kind of is at the end, and I don't know, like I could have front loaded. And I was thinking about that, like, as we were doing the lesson, I was like, oh shoot, maybe I should have like front loaded some of these words and talked about them before going in. So that would be something that I could do. But now in retrospect, considering I didn't front load those words, especially because I thought she might be familiar. I'm thinking that I might do for word study, because actually Dr. Lee observed my word study lesson and she was talking about different type of word work that I could do outside of the spelling. And I think maybe we could do like a glossary and do some kind of fun word activity with the unknown words that I've collected from this article with her. So there have been a few throughout, not many. Today we came upon a new one. Dismount was one today, and debuted was another one today. So I think it might be good for us to pull like a handful of words and just kind of go through and reinforce that.
Yeah. So just going off of that, like when you got a chance to look at the data, like what did you notice from that?
So I noticed that most of the time was spent during the reading portion. So I did notice that she is taking a lot of her time doing the reading. I have like mixed thoughts about that. I think that there is difficulty the first time going through reading something. Oftentimes I found with the article that when she reads it a second time, she's comprehending it, right? And some of the paragraphs might be a little bit more difficult than others, but I don't necessarily mind that struggle with her. She's able to understand it. Yeah.
So you're saying that most of what you're noticing from the data is that most of it was, the reading portion.
Yeah.
What can you recall what Kaya and what you were doing in those circumstances?
So during those times, when she was reading through the initial time with ADHD, I know the big words were in parentheses there, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I read those words out to her and I said, you can just call it ADHD from now on. And as we continued going throughout the sections, at the end, I would say, okay, let's reread now and go through and, look for thoughts or look for words. she was super successful with her thoughts, which I
Yeah.
thought that was going to be the challenge
Yeah.
for her. I was like, she might not
Yeah.
pick up because it says believes here,
Mhm.
and she might not,
I know.
she
That
knew it
was
right off the
amazing.
bat.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. But she struggled with the words, which I thought were going to be easier. And I
Mhm.
think like, I think back to when I taught third grade, and I think like dialogue, like
Yes.
quotations,
Yeah.
like kids should know that. Something she didn't know.
Yeah.
So moving forward, that's another thing that I would like to teach into with her through reading comprehension,
Yeah.
or maybe even like fluency. I could do something.
Even just going off, thinking about, you know, quotation marks. If you look at the data, it was about like 3 to 4 minutes that were spent on those
Yeah.
quotation marks.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how maybe you can incorporate that into other sections of even your lesson plan,
And that
and
was the
not just
thing.
in reading. You know?
I didn't think about that, you know, and I kind of just assumed that she would
Yeah.
know quotation marks. And that was something that interesting that I found
Yeah.
out that she didn't know.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
do think that that's another thing outside of the words that I have to teach into with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what you were doing in terms of during that lesson, in terms of that reading portion.
So during the reading portion, just kind of listening and
Mhm.
monitoring her, looking to see if she was having difficulties with
Mhm.
words
Yeah.
that could then in turn cause
Yeah.
difficulty with comprehension. And I'm really just tracking to see what are some things that I need to continue to teach into with
Mhm.
her, versus, you know, just things, oh, well, she knows this and she
Yeah.
understands this, and that's something that, you know, I can just let
Yeah.
go. Like thoughts, I know she understands
Yes.
that. Words, I know that that's something that we have to keep working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're aware that, you know, working on words might be something that you need to continue working on, is what you're
Yes.
saying.
Yeah.
So if you look at just like the pacing of everything, you know, the intro I thought was a perfect timing. You know, you
Mhm.
did an amazing job, like
Mhm.
regaining her, giving her confidence, like you did so well. I thought that was really awesome, and she was very engaged in that. And then I told it up around the minutes that she read. I mean, it might be a minute or two off on that, but it was like around 8 minutes was focusing on like her doing the actual like reading. And then
Yeah.
a lot of the rest of the lesson was really focused on you like questioning her and like giving that, you know, assistance with her in that. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you think that gradual release was in that sense?
That's a good question. So I think that there are times when I'm finding that she's a little bit more not understanding of a certain portion, that I'm more leading her
Yeah.
in that sense,
Mhm.
versus you know, kind of letting her try to grapple with it and
Mhm.
figure it out. The reason I kind of do that is because if I'm not kind of there, and it happened today, like
Yeah.
where, and not necessarily with reading comprehension, but anytime throughout
Yeah.
any lessons when I'm asking her questions, she kind of just goes like,
I
and
heard
just,
her say
yeah,
that at one point.
like
Yeah.
she just goes into like a blank stare, and I
Yeah.
think it's like so overwhelming. And you know, and I was talking about this
Yeah.
with Dr. Lee, and she said something like, you know, you could say like, it's okay if you don't
Mhm.
know, but you know, you have to tell me that,
Yeah.
so then I can help you and I can help
Yes.
explain it
Yes.
to you. So that's something that we worked on today in
Okay.
our lesson. I've been really trying to do that with her. Like, it's okay if you don't know, like,
Yeah.
you know, this is this, and
Mhm.
then we'll kind of move on from there. I kind of, I don't know, I go back and forth
Yeah.
because there are portions that she's fully
Yes.
understanding. And I think for the most part, big portions that she
Yeah.
gets,
Yeah.
but those are the little instructional places,
Yeah.
you know, in the, so I don't know. I think as far as gradual release goes, that's something that kind of has to be taught into.
Mhm.
Like there are some things that have to be taught into more with her.
Yeah.
There are some days where it's not as,
Yeah.
you know, I do, you
Yeah.
do, or we do, you do. Like yesterday was one of those
Yeah.
days. It was
Yeah.
more difficult, a more difficult part of the text because of those complex,
Mhm.
like medical terms.
Yeah. So what I'm understanding that what you're saying is she varies obviously day to day and certain skills. So if you're thinking back to that lesson and thinking, not every lesson is going to follow that I do, we do kind of model. When she had that hard time with that with the vocabulary words in that second passage, what could you have, I don't want to word it like that.
It's okay.
Let me think about it. Tell me a little bit more about how maybe you could, I don't know. That's a reflection on my part. I'll just say it. Like maybe you could have done like a think aloud or a model, like maybe like think about how maybe you could see yourself doing that. I don't know.
I'm trying to even think back like to that part of the lesson. It's so like I'm trying to even think back to that part of the lesson, like where I definitely could have thought aloud, like, oh, like, gee, like I think this, but I don't know. There were like a couple roadblocks during the lesson yesterday, like with, first of all, the terms, like couple of the terms, and then her not knowing the words, like the dialogue and the quotations and what that meant. So in those specific instances, it was just like, I need to kind of explain this to you.
Exactly.
Whereas it was like, man, like if I would have known that she didn't know what quotation is, I could have taught into that, and we could have done like like a model thing. So that is something, it's a good point. I do need to keep an eye out for that though.
But overall, like going forward, with taking all this in, how do you, like, I'm really struggling right now trying to phrase these. How can you use, what we've discussed and like what you want to take away and maybe put into the next lesson?
So I think I really need to focus on modeling more. And I think I need to be catching that in the moment, I think. Because I don't know, maybe my brain goes into like this panic mode where it's like, oh, she doesn't know this. Like, let me just tell her. So I think a lot of time I spend trying to talk through to get her there. Whereas it's like, I don't know if this is something that can be modeled, like, let me question, I don't know. So it's kind of dependent upon what the particular thing is, but I could definitely think about modeling moving forward. And it was good information that I got from the lesson to know there were a couple things that she wasn't aware of. So moving forward, I can be a little bit more prepared in maybe front loading some vocabulary, even if it's kind of a technical term and I think she might know it, if it's there. And I say, did you ever hear this word before? And if she's like, no, then it's like, great, let's go over this. And then wait, there was one other thing I wanted to add. Modeling, front loading the words.
Front-loading the
Oh,
vocabulary.
and the quotations and words. That's something else. Like I said, great data that I want to move forward with and teach into a lesson with that.
I think that
So
sounds
she's
like
familiar.
good plan.
All right, thank you.
Really